Welcome to the Decades Reloaded community podcast, the Mental Health Mixtape, where we will be talking all things mental health related in every aspect of life, connecting with local communities and fitness professionals. We're here to start the conversation around mental health and make a difference. So join us, take a listen and be part of the conversation. Hi Karen, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Lucy. How are you? Thanks for inviting us on to your podcast today.
Good, thank you. Thank you for coming on. So I'm really stoked to have you come on actually and talk to our listeners a little bit more about Mid and North East Essex Mind and some of the exciting things that you're doing at the moment. So if you could just start by telling us a little bit about Mid and North East Essex Mind more specifically, because I know there's a difference between you guys and sort of the overarching main mind group. So for anyone that doesn't know, who are you guys? What's the difference? What are you?
Yeah, so we're your local mental health charity. So we cover, as our name suggests, Mid and North East Essex. We're part of the National Mind Charity Federation, and however we are financially independent. We don't have any financial support from National Mind. So obviously we'd love your kind of supporters to be supporting their local minds. So any fundraising or support they give would go into local mental health services. So National Mind, just to explain the difference, they do a lot of the kind of government lobbying at a high level. So most recently they were trying to get the Mental Health Act reform changed because it's so out of date, and they were hoping it would be part of the King's Speech to change that, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So they do a lot of the kind of high level government lobbying, and the local mind is responsible for local mental health services. So we're one of the larger local minds. We have about 70 staff that kind of work. Most of those kind of colleagues are out and about in the community across Mid and North East Essex, but we span from tendering sort of through to Colchester and to Braintree, Morden, and sort of finish off around sort of Chelmsford, really. So it's quite a big part of Essex that we're responsible for.
Yeah. Wow. So you've got loads going on at the moment, haven't you? You do quite a lot of trainings, and you recently actually had, I say recently, I think it was actually May that I went on.
Yeah, I think you came last year to our mental health awareness or suicide awareness training last year, I think, didn't you, Lucy? I think
I did, and that was fantastic. And it was really beneficial to come and do a face-to-face one rather than an online one, because I've already done various ones in the past and some online during lockdown, and it's just an absolute contrast doing it in person and sort of being in a room with lots of different thoughts and opinions and a real interactive dialogue going on throughout the training. And you had those funded as well, didn't you? So there was a lot of funded ones that went out as well, but then now you've got this new one that
we've got an exciting new product. It's called the Mental Health Toolkit, which was developed about 7 years ago by our partners across the border at Suffolk Mind, and they've had fantastic success with this product across Suffolk. So we're actually piloting this product across Mid and North East Essex at the moment. So we've had some funding, which we've still got some funding which will cover kind of all of the tendering area. We've just secured some funding for Braintree, and we'll have some more sessions coming up in Colchester as well. So these sessions are available for anyone to come to. Doesn't matter who you are, what you do, whether you're working, not working. You're very welcome to come along to one of these sessions. And the Mental Health Toolkit, it's a little bit different to some of your bulk standard mental health training or mental health first aid training, but it's really a real practical product that you can really sort of take into your everyday life and talk to your friends, your colleagues, others about how they're feeling. So it's all based on physical and emotional needs of a human being, of which there are some basic physical needs that we all know about, but sleep is one of them, probably one of the most important ones, that not everybody has the luxury of enjoying good sleep. We talk a lot about the importance of good sleep. Food and drink, obviously another thing that we all need to live to keep us going, we all need. And also an area that you'll be very familiar with around movement. We say movement and not exercise because sometimes people hear exercise and run a mile, but movement, because movement Doesn't have to be a huge, big, like running a marathon or going on a 10K run, for example, but it could be any little bit of kind of movement that somebody could undertake, because we know that everyone's different physical abilities. So, for example, it could be just, you know, doing some movement in the garden, doing some potting of some plants in the garden, or it could be just going for a walk around the block. It doesn't have to be a big, you know, full-on gym session. I know some of your clients will be a lot more kind of geared up to some sort of more vigorous exercise, but it's just really about getting some sort of movement to be healthy. The training then goes into a bit more detail about the emotional needs that we face as humans, that we all need to have. So be that sort of community, attention, control, the need to feel secure in our environment, be that work, home. So it really sort of drills into the emotional and physical needs that a human being requires. And actually, if those needs are not being met, or not all of those needs are being met, you can slip down the mental health continuum and you can find yourself in poor mental health. I mean, the great thing is that the majority of people that find themselves sliding down to poor mental health, you know, most of those people will recover and get back into good mental health. And in good mental health, we know that it's not just, you know, no one's life is perfect, despite what we see on social media and, you know, Instagram. You know, I don't think there's hardly anybody out there whose life is perfect, but you can be in good mental health, obviously, if you're thinking straight and acting straight. You know, when those challenges do come along, it makes it a lot better to deal with. So, yeah, the new mental health toolkit is the real practical tool, and you get a set of cards as well, which have got all of the physical and emotional needs on. So you could have a conversation with, you know, a friend, a colleague, and just sort of say, you know, how, you know, which of your needs are being met, and you can kind of pop the cards into different piles. And there's also an emotional needs audit that someone could complete just to sort of work out where they're at and reflect on where you're at with your mental well-being at that present time.
So would you say that I had a conversation yesterday with somebody else who's actually been on the podcast as well, about they recently went through burnout, and then they were experiencing severe anxiety attacks as well, potentially as a direct result of going from perimenopause to menopause. But we had a whole conversation about that in itself, and the medical professionals having disagreements over actually checking for menopause and linking the two together. But we do know that that is a bit of a known fact, that the menopause can have.
Yeah.
I mean, even before menopause, like our cycles itself can affect mental health. But anyway, she was going on to talk about how her family felt trying to support her through going from experiencing the burnout, then the panic attacks, and then suicide idealizations, which came as a complete enough surprise to her, because she had never ever experienced any real notable change in her mental health throughout her life. And then her family was sort of thrown into this position to support her, and she's a self-employed fitness professional like myself, so she hasn't got a team of people in the workplace, so to speak, to sort of support her through that. So for somebody in that position, for say a loved one, would it benefit them as well to get involved in this toolkit training, because then they would be more equipped to help from the outside looking in as a loved one as well as in a workplace?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a great point, because one of our kind of goals as a charity, we've just actually we've got a new CEO on board, Ginny, that joined us last August. And we're doing some fantastic work here now. We've just involved the whole of our team, like every colleague across the organisation, to look at our kind of our purpose. Why are we here? And we've come up with our new purpose, which is basically we offer hope and support for good mental health, so that no one feels alone. So that's, you know, hopefully that kind of simply says what we're here to do, because we were really wanted to kind of dig down deep about why are we here. And one of those purposes as well is part of that. It's to educate people around how to look after their mental health. And obviously, as that whole saying goes, put your own life jacket on first. I think that's kind of really important, because I think you have to, you know, look after your own sort of well-being and mental health before you can help others. But I think coming onto this training could kind of like help understand why somebody, a loved one or colleague or a friend, so the lady that you spoke to yesterday, you know, some support for her family around her, to sort of understand what are the kind of things they could be doing that could kind of help her. And I think the concept of this training product makes it a simpler conversation than a more difficult conversation, because you can kind of really just use these kind of emotional needs to say, you know, are you getting this? Are you getting that? Are you, you know, are you getting enough privacy? Are you achieving what's your meaning and purpose? So it kind of goes through all the things that could make someone not be in such good mental health. So I think this training is perfect for anybody that has concerns about, you know, a loved one, colleague, to help them to understand, you know, if the individual doesn't want to come along on the training, but it would be really useful for those around them, the loved ones, to help gain a bit of an understanding of the things that they could do to try and help that person to, you know, feel better.
And I really like the ethos that you were saying that you are really sort of honing in now, is sort of that nobody has to feel alone, because I know from my own mental health condition that when I then experienced grief on top of my personality disorder, that loneliness was kind of a big part of that, because even though I wasn't alone per se, I had my baby and my partner and my family around me. I was very alone in how I was feeling, because I didn't know anyone else that had experienced losing a parent at my stage of life, with a brand new baby, going back to work, and everything that I'd sort of gone through while still trying to run a business and doing it all with this personality disorder on top. And although my partner had lost one of his parents, it was an extremely different scenario, and he didn't see his dad, and they didn't have a relationship, so it was very, very different. So I felt completely and utterly alone, even though I was surrounded by people. And so it was using charities such as yourself, where I could go online, and even with like online support, and just feel a little bit less isolated in how I was feeling, and just seeing that other people actually were going through it as well and understood.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because I think when someone's, you know, clearly, I know you've been very open about, you've kindly supported us with writing some, you know, great blogs and supported our charity, so we're really grateful for that. And the fact you've been kind of open about it will hopefully help you and help others moving forwards. But clearly you went through, you know, a really difficult time with lots of different things thrown at you at the same time, which must have been pretty difficult to kind of manage. You know, losing a parent and a new baby, like you've just described, it must have been really tough. But I think sometimes just talking to other like-minded people, knowing that there's sort of help available and someone to listen, that's sometimes all it needs. It doesn't necessarily need any big medical interventions. Just having someone to talk to is kind of really important. So there's other things that we kind of do across. One of the key services I want to kind of highlight today to you and your listeners was really our crisis cafe service in Colchester and Clacton. Yep. So that's a place that that's available from 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. kind of daily in Colchester and also in Clacton. So in the centre of Colchester, Community 360 building in the centre of the city, and also we've just moved into new premises partnership with Open Road in Clacton. So that's a service that you don't have to be, the name Crisis Cafe suggests you have to be in a full-on crisis to use and access that service, but you really don't. The team there, they will get calls from, it could be like a new young mum that's kind of just really struggling to see someone to talk to. It could be from a parent that's struggling or got concerns about a child that might be self-harming, because we know that's quite a big problem in kind of schools across Essex and across the country now as well. It could be someone that's been kind of made, you know, homeless and just, you know, is lost all their security and wants to, you know, to speak to someone to get some help and advice or signposting. So it's a really important service that we kind of operate in Colchester and Clacton, that that's available through self-referral, so you don't have to wait for some big lengthy referral to access that service as well. And all the details can be found on Crisis Cafe and the telephone number on our website, which I can give you at the end to remind you of how to access all the information about our services. Perfect. But that's a really important area that, yeah, the Crisis Cafe service in Colchester and Clacton. So that's a place, you know, where you literally find like a warm, friendly welcome from Louise and the team that kind of run that service. So yeah, you don't have to be in a full-on crisis. And this service is really to try and prevent a full-on mental health crisis and somebody ending up in A&E or in hospital. And we do get, you know, difficult calls that come through there that, you know, individuals that are thinking about suicide. And obviously you know, it's not an emergency service. So I think if anybody was really thinking about taking their own life or had concerns about someone, it should always be 111 option 2 or 999. But hopefully our team there would just be a safe, comfortable space or telephone call for someone to speak to if they're in some sort of crisis. So that's a really important service that we offer in this area.
I'm really glad, actually, well, not glad in the sense of what it was about, but that you mentioned where parents could go if they're concerned about a child who has been talking about self-harm or suicide, because I had a conversation with another parent recently, actually this week. So I've had a lot of conversations this week. I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah, actually doing a really productive week, lots of talking, Lucy, which is great.
And they have experienced their child talking about suicide, and actually at the end of the last academic year, even my own child had said a few times, I wish I was dead, very, very bluntly, whilst cleaning his teeth, about going to school. And it was extremely alarming and really distressing. And one of the occasions where he'd said it, I got to the school gate and one of the mums said, well, you're okay. And I just fell apart, because something was different in his tone that day when he said it compared to when he'd just sort of thrown it around like it's something that they joke about in the playground. And that was so alarming. And although I thought, well, I don't think he really understands what he meant by that, on the flip side, where's he getting this language from and these ideas from, which means it's being talked about somewhere in his peer group at school. He doesn't do after school clubs because I'm never here to take him, I'm always at work. But so it's happening at school and it's happening in playgrounds, and it makes perfect sense that you're telling us that this is an increasing issue. So to know that there's somewhere that parents can actually go to seek support,
we're actually really we were commissioned to work on a project to update the self-harm management toolkit, and we're rolling that out across educational settings across the whole of Essex. So actually for this project we're operating kind of beyond the Mid and North East Essex area. Okay. So we started a whole series of kind of roadshows in Colchester at the end of last year, and then sort of Chelmsford, and they're happening across the area, and there'll be more roadshows, kind of workshops really coming back to Mid and North East Essex this year. So these are kind of really designed specifically really for those working in educational settings. So it could be pastoral staff in schools, etc., but primary schools upwards. But sadly, there is a kind of real rise in self-harm amongst young people. So that's some of the more obvious sort of self-harming, like sort of cutting, but obviously that does include like eating disorders. So it's a really important piece of work that we're supporting at the moment across our area. So again, there's information and resources on our websites, specifically on self-harm, which has got some resources on there for sort of parents and teachers, but also just some information on the sort of things to look out for and how you go about sort of have a conversation with a young person about self-harming. So unfortunately, kind of that is the reality of the times we're in at the moment, and I guess the pressure that young people are on with social media. Obviously, a lot of them kind of suffered social isolation through COVID, like a lot of people did as well. And young people now just live their whole life like looking at phones, don't they? It's very different to kind of back in the day when I was growing up. But unfortunately, it's a sad fact as well that kind of the area that we are in does have one of the highest rates of suicide, and young people under 18 and men under 50 are particular areas of concern. So Colchester kind of tendering does have some of the highest rates, which is kind of really alarming. So the work that we doing, if we can just all be more open about talking about suicide, and we have delivered last year a kind of number of suicide workshops as well. So it's things to spot signs, because it's not always easy to tell. So sometimes you can't, someone that might seem really happy on the outside, sometimes they're the people that are really hard to spot. But I think it's just looking for those, we can support with information about signs to look for and what to do if you have concerns about someone that is thinking about taking their life. Because, anything we can do just to sort of save one more life that doesn't have to be ended in that way is a great thing.
Yeah. And the work you guys are doing is absolutely amazing, and we are very lucky to have you here in Essex. So we had a conversation recently about a new campaign that you're working on as well, which I'm a big fan of for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so as you kind of get into sort of turn of year, you see all these kind of adverts around about movement, and but we kind of operate running at the moment kind of like a movement kind of campaign. So we touched on it a short while ago, but any sort of movement that an individual can do is massively of benefit to them. I think you gave us some tips recently about on your blog about moving to music, walking or cycling short journeys instead of taking a car. Pottering around the garden, walking the dog, doing a bit of DIY. These are all examples of movement. It doesn't have to be running a marathon or a 10K. So it's what works for you.
Yeah.
But clearly, movement, as you'll know, as a fitness expert, obviously releases endorphins, and that helps you, makes you feel better. So I think most of us, once we've actually got away from our desks and gone for a walk, if it's a 10-minute walk and lunch break, it makes you feel so much better equipped to deal with kind of the day ahead and life in general. For some people, movement might be just getting out of bed, and we know that's not a gimme for a lot of people, just to be able to kind of get out of bed in the morning, so, or any time of the day. But for some, that might be a big tick in the box for someone to actually just get themselves up and get moving and getting washed and dressed for the day. That could be movement. So yeah, so we've been promoting the benefits of movement. Ginny, our CEO, was signed up to, she was supposed to be the focal point for our campaign, but unfortunately she signed up for the Culture to Zoo Stampede on the 28th of April, which we're headline charity partner for. And as part of her training, Ginny had never run before in her life. So she was doing Couch to 5K, and then started to kind of get out on the roads because she was running indoors, mostly on a treadmill. And then she fell over one wet January morning and really badly hurt herself. And actually, it's only come to light more recently that she's broken something. So she was supposed to be the focal point, and it was around Ginny's journey to running, a 10K for the first time in her life. So unfortunately, didn't go quite to plan, but we're kind of using the fact that we've got the headline charity partnership for the Culture to Zoo Stampede. It's at the end of next month now, Sunday the 28th of April. So if any of your listeners want to join our team and run from the zoo 10K and be part of our team, we'd love to have them on board. You get a super exclusive running vest with like animals on, which last year
they're lovely as well.
Yeah, last year we had with one type of vest, and we've got a new edition vest for this year's event. So yeah, anyone that wants to join our team, they'd be very welcome to join our team, and we'd love their support on the 28th of April. So all the information can be found on our website, how to sign up to the Culture to the Zoo Stampede. So I think movement and your mental health, there's just so many connections and how it can really help. So we're going to continue pressing that message out there. And we've got some other exciting campaigns coming for the rest of the year. So we've got Mental Health Awareness Week coming up the week of the 13th of May. So we'll be doing lots of things around that week. We're looking at working with Headingham Chambers buses to get a chatty bus going around and about, just to encourage people to sort of talk about their mental health. I mean, clearly, Mental Health Awareness Week is 1 week in a year. We don't want mental health conversations to be 1 week of the year.
Yeah.
Anything that kind of draws attention to mental health, and that week is a particularly big week in the mental health calendar. So we'll be looking at running some more funded training sessions across that week as well, and just kind of getting out about in the community to make people aware that we're there and our services are available.
Brilliant. Oh, it sounds so good, and I'm really excited to be able to support the charity as well a little bit more this year. And I love the Moving for Your Mind campaign. It's just it's going to be brilliant. And anyone doing the Stampede, of course, they could walk it, they don't have to run. So if you're not any of these running events, that walkers are always welcome. I think I haven't done the Stampede, but usually walkers get set off separately from the runners and things like that, so you can do either or, it doesn't matter. I mean, just walking around the zoo is quite the workout for anyone who's looking to take part, and it's great, you get to see the animals too. So
exactly. It's quite
animals.
Yeah, it's quite unique as you start off, and you kind of got the elephants one side of you, the giraffes the other side of you, so it's quite a unique event. And the great thing as well, obviously, as well as supporting Mid and North East Essex Mines, you're also supporting the zoo charity Action for the Wild. So they do a lot of kind of great work around conservation. So anyone that signs up for the Stampedes are supporting, if they choose to run for Mid and North East Essex Mine, because they can pick their own local charity if they prefer. But it also, every runner, there'll be a donation made by the event organisers to Action for the Wild, which is the zoo charity. So everyone's kind of benefiting from runners signing up for this event next month.
And you've spoken quite a bit about the funding that's available for the charity for the workshops and everything else. How can people sort of support the charity and give to the charity by other means other than the Stampede? What other ways are there that they can support? I mean, it doesn't have to be financial, does it? There's lots of ways that they can.
No, not at all. Because I mean, it's tough in the charity world at the moment, as you can imagine. I guess on the back of COVID, and then cost of living, and a lot of the reports that are out at the moment, obviously saying that that charities are kind of probably struggling more now than they were through COVID. Actually, just with the cost of living, we know it's having a massive impact for most average people kind of have got less money to spend, but we do know that people have got big hearts. Generally, there's a lot of people out there that still want to kind of give and support charities. So there's any sort of small events that people want to do, whether it's a sort of coffee morning or cake sale, or small events like sponsorship events and things like that, we can provide support for any sort of smaller events. And there's the events that we're doing. We mentioned the Stampede, but we're also partnering with our colleagues across the border at Suffolk Mines and Norfolk and Waveney Mines, and we're running a seven piers, 3 counties cycle event on the 9th of June. So it starts off at Great Yarmouth Pier, and then passes on the piers down the east coast and ends at Clacton Pier. So it's 94 miles. If you've got any budding cyclists out there, they can join us on that. But it's not just all about the financial donations. We had a lady the other day that sent us the most amazing poems. So there was a little pack of poems on anxiety and a lovely little kind of embroidered pack, so that people could just look at some inspirational quotes and things to keep them going. So we've had donations. We will be at Invasion Colchester in September. So that's, if you're not aware of it, have you been to Invasion Colchester before?
I'll be honest, I know of it, but I tend to avoid it because it's too busy to take my children to. My son's a bit of a runner.
It's an interesting event. Kind of everybody descends upon Colchester city centre dressed as the Comic-Con, so they're dressed as Darth Vader or Spider-Man or Superman. So you're literally in the centre of Colchester, and you just don't know what you're going to see next. So any sort of tombola donations would be really welcome for that, because obviously we have a tombola at the event which raises money for us. So small gifts or unwanted birthday presents or Christmas presents, all those sorts of things, we're really grateful for those. And also volunteering. We're just actually starting to recruit volunteers to support. So it could be giving time as well. So if people have got more regular time to give, then they can come into the office here and support us with a bit of admin. We're also hoping to start quite soon a sort of telephone support line for the community. So it could be actually a couple of hours a week to pick up the phone and support people out there that might just need to know where they need to go for help. And also if you're busy and working, you don't have that much time to give, a couple of times a year coming along to our events like the Stampede to support the fundraising team with cheering on the runners and checking runners in and that kind of activity. So volunteering, if anyone's interested, they can contact us about volunteering. It could be a little bit of time or it could be more time. We're really flexible, so we'd love help in those ways as well.
Great. So what other support channels are accessible through you guys for people? So you mentioned the Crisis Cafe. What other means of support?
So the Crisis Cafe, some of your listeners, if they're kind of more, your listeners mainly kind of in the north of Essex, or you have some called like mid-Essex?
They could be absolutely anywhere. So there's no limits on the locations for this podcast. So right now we could be being listened to up in Scotland or down in Cornwall, or so it's quite a wide scope. But for anyone that's in the northeast Essex area, let's say, what can they?
I mean, just to say that if you have got listeners that are not in this particular area or wider than Essex, across England and Wales there are 110 local mines, so 110 of us, all different shapes and sizes, different services, all mental health services. of course, but it's worth looking up your local mind for checking out what services they have. But in terms of Mid and North East Essex, as well as the Crisis Cafe that I mentioned, we launched a new service that we fully funded ourselves last year, the Personality Disorder Service, which is in Mid Essex. So that's based kind of in Malden and Braintree. We have like peer support groups which kind of meet every month, we've had amazing feedback, you know, just a group of people that have that diagnosis to talk to other people who really understand what it's like to live with that. It's been really so important. But we kind of help with practical support as well. So navigating the system and making GP appointments, things like that, that somebody with a PD diagnosis would struggle with at times. We also have counselling services. So we offer counselling. We support some of the services that are free through the NHS. Unfortunately, there's quite a big waiting list for those services. But we do offer, if someone needs counselling sooner and has the means to pay for counselling to be seen sooner, we do have a private counselling service as well, which is £40 for an hour. We have our STAR service, so that team that operate in North Essex, they support people with practical help, so it could be debt, housing, employment. So that team do an amazing job in North Essex. And then we also have so we have the self-harm management toolkit program that's kind of running across the area as well. So yes, there's a real kind of range of different types of services, and we're hopeful to be launching quite soon as well a more formalised community helpline, so that we can signpost people. If we don't have the service that can help with, we can tell you somebody that does. We're kind of doing that anyway. Do we get lots of calls, you know, just sitting here now, I can hear the phone ringing in the admin office, people that will be calling saying, you know, I'm struggling, or I'm worried about somebody. And if we don't have the service, we can certainly point them in the right direction to say, you know, somebody that could help them. So we really want to kind of be that resource hub for the communities of Mid and North East Essex. And for listeners outside of our area, I know there's, you know, the other local minds across England and Wales, because mine doesn't actually operate in Scotland, fortunately, but there are other mental health charities that do. Yeah, there are lots of local minds like us that will have their own services kind of across the locality. So it's worth checking out your local mind if you're outside of Mid and North East Essex.
Right, and we've only got a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you just really quickly about the Real Lived Experience panel that you guys have recently selected. How would you say, this is my understanding, is to share real lived experiences with other people as a form of support and almost comforting. So how would you say that somebody else's experience could support another person who might be experiencing difficulties with their mental health?
Yes, I think it's really important for any organisation to be guided on what they do by those that use the services or need the services. So we don't just sit here in Mersey Road at our head office and think, oh, we think we need this service, we think we need that service. So it's really important to understand people's experience if they're living with or have lived with or know someone that has living with a mental health condition. And mental health doesn't always have to be, you know, a more serious condition. It could be, we touched on it earlier, anxiety, depression, those are all forms of mental health, which, you know, pretty much everyone in their life will undergo some anxiety or depression at different times, and then hopefully go back into good mental health. But there's so many different kind of mental health conditions out there. But the lived experience panel, we recruited the panel late last year, so they kind of fully became operational December time. So we went out to the local community and said, are you living with, do you know someone that has, or have you lived with a mental health condition, and would you like to help shape what we do as an organisation moving forward? So Simona, who heads up our personality disorder team, she manages kind of that programme, and we've got about 10 on the first panel. So these are a mixture of people that have different conditions, some still living with, some have had experience, and it's not really about them having to share their personal stories unless they want to. It's really around us saying, you know, do you think that that's easy to find that on our website? Do you think the information's on our website is good enough? What do you think of this this new service we're thinking about? What does it need to look like? Actually, before we'd actually set up the formal panel, it was a group of people that are living with personality disorder that told us what we should do in our service. and that was to help navigate the system. So on the back of their feedback, we called them navigators. So instead of like mental health worker, we call that team their navigators, and they are helping people with a personality disorder service to navigate the system, because it's really difficult, getting access to medication and talking to employers, etc. So they came up with that name, for example. So we had support from National Mind with setting up a lived experience panel, and the group have actually just called themselves, we don't actually refer them now as lived experience panel, it's Voices for a Brighter Future, and that's what the panel came up with, what they wanted to do. So many of the panel I've spoken to, they said their motivation for working with us is to help other people and to help younger people not have to go through what they went through when they were going through that, and the difficulties they had. So there's a real desire to kind of help. And some of the group, they come out to events with us now. They want to kind of be firsthand. We had a Colchester United event a few weeks ago, beginning of February. It was on Time to Talk Day, and we had a chatty bus outside, and we were there to engage with supporters if they wanted to talk, or just to let them know about our services. And we had a couple of the panel come with us to just to give that first-hand experience, because they don't necessarily want to talk to somebody that's standing there with a Mid and North East Essex Mind t-shirt. They'd rather maybe speak to somebody that's used the service and can actually say, yeah, I can say that the Crisis Cafe is a great service to really help me with XYZ. So this panel, and we'll be looking to sort of recruit more members of this panel moving forward. We do actually make a financial compensation as well, so we do recognise it's people's time. So we do compensate the kind of panel for their support and information on some of the activities they undertake. Some of them it's on a voluntary basis, but we do, really value this, and it's really important when we're applying for funding as well. So if we're going to a local authority or to the NHS for funding for service, they won't even entertain giving you money now unless you can demonstrate that you've had feedback from service users or people that are using or will use the service, that this is needed. So it's so
absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's so important in so many ways. Yeah.
And as somebody with a mental health condition, I definitely appreciate the value of hearing that my local charity is taking feedback from people in similar positions who have an understanding of living with a mental health condition. I'm going to lose you any second now.
Time is up.
So
money's out the meter.
I would love to talk to you about your views on the latest budget not having any reference to mental health. If you could sum it up in 3 words, what would you say?
Extremely, well, it's so 2 words, extremely disappointing.
Yeah.
And you've seen a lot of the kind of National Minds campaigning at the moment is really so heavily around the lack of investment and support for mental health. But we'd love to come back again and talk to you. We can get one of our colleagues working. Maybe Louise that runs the Crisis Cafe would be perfect to come and talk about some real life examples of what she sees every day and ways that we can help. But just a big thank you to you, Lucy, as well, because you're a big advocate for mental health and what we do, and you're supporting us with writing blogs and things. So yeah, we really appreciate your support. The more people that can kind of showcase and share what we do, the better, really. So thank you for your support. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's my absolute pleasure, and it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much, Karen.
Okay.
And I look forward to scheduling round 2 with you to talk even more about this. It's such an important
great
topic.
Thanks for your support, Lucy. Enjoy the rest of your time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.